Hello class, this is Travis Knapp, and I'm going to be talking about our flight from Jacksonville today. So just a short trip overview. We're leaving from KJAX for a local training flight. I'm a commercial student. I've got about 2 flights left, and then I'm going to be submitted for my commercial check ride. Obviously, this is probably a flight that I'm going to be pretty anxious on, given that I need to learn and become proficient on a few things before my flight. It's going to be VFR day flight. It's going to be hot and humid in the afternoon. It's July in Florida. Thunderstorms in the vicinity, and our CFI wants to bring his family, presumably his 2 parents, and it's going to put our airplane close to max gross weight, or right at max gross weight. His parents are from Maryland, and they haven't seen him at work yet as a CFI, and this is something that's important to him, that they get to see him perform this task. And we're going to be flying a 172 with the G1000 suite. This is an airplane I'm familiar with because it's from my flight school. All right, so here's our route overview. You can see Jacksonville located there. There's some storms off to the northwest, some local thunderstorms, and then further up north as well. Not exactly sure if that's a front line or if these are just afternoon storms in Florida. But we'll be doing a local flight. I'm assuming if we do make this flight, we'll be headed down to the south or to the southwest or southeast to stay away from those storms if they are moving away. If they're moving towards Jacksonville, I'm going to be very unlikely to recommend this flight to my flight instructor. All right, and then our airport is close to sea level. It's 30 feet MSL rather. All right, so preparing for this flight, I'm going to go through the I Am Safe checklist that I do every time. Illness not going to be an issue on this flight. Medication's not an issue. Stress. If my CFI does decide to bring his parents, I might be stressed out because I'm used to just flying with my CFI and not having onlookers. Additionally, the loading of the airplane is going to be different, and I'm going to be concerned about the airplane's performance in the high density altitude and my upcoming tests, and kind of just throwing a wrench in right before I go and take my DPE check ride. So I think I'm going to be experiencing a little bit of stress. Alcohol, obviously, I will be within the legal limits and not drink or be under the effect of alcohol. Fatigue and emotions and eating, hopefully all these things are going to be in line with me. Really, the only thing I'm concerned about this is stress, is something I'll discuss with my flight instructor. So our aircraft, we're going to go through the Aero PC checklist for it, make sure it's got all the documents. So airworthiness certificate, registration, owner's manual, weight and balance, placards, and compass cards. Specifically, I'm going to be concerned about the weight and balance, and I'm going to be concerned about the performance calculations. Granted that we're going to be in a high density altitude environment, also with a heavy airplane. So talking about our environment, I'm going to use my NW Craft for some of my pre-flight actions as I frame my thoughts on the environment. So I'm going to look at all the NOTAMs for KJAX and surrounding airports. I'm going to look at the weather. I'm specifically concerned about what's going to be going on with those thunderstorms. If I am going to fly, this is probably a great flight to call a weather briefer and discuss what these thunderstorms are going to be doing in my vicinity and make sure I'm staying safe. Additionally, I think it's going to be a really good idea to pick an alternate that I'm actually going to go to if these thunderstorms do move over KJAX and I'm unable to return. Known traffic delays, you can just check the FAA website, make sure that there's no major delays at KJAX. Now, the runway lengths is a great thing at KJAX, my local airport. It's 10,000 and 7,000 feet, so even with the high density altitude, this should be requisite runway to make a safe landing, even if we're close to max weight. Fuel required. This is going to be important to me because we might drop some fuel to try to reduce our weight. And then takeoff and landing distances. Again, important because we're close to max weight and it's a hot and humid day. So this is more for an alternate airport. I would want to make sure that I can get into my alternate airport because I'm definitely going to be able to get into KJAX. All right, and then continuing our discussion on the environment, just a bigger breakdown of the weather here. So there's our METAR, just a couple things highlighted, 32 degrees Celsius, and then also lightning in the distance to the northwest. And then our TAF is just predicting that it's going to stay similar conditions, not predicting thunderstorms coming into our aerodome. And that TAF covers the entire period of our flight. And density altitude is at 1,840, so it is high. And then also that density altitude does not compensate for humidity as well, which is decently humid. All right, external pressures. This is the biggest thing that I have to worry about on this flight, and it's my CFI wanting to bring his family along, which is going to push our plane to its max gross weight. When discussing external pressure, a couple hazardous attitudes that I've identified is invulnerability, so flying in a very heavy airplane in a very high density altitude environment, also around thunderstorms. I might think that things won't happen to me. It won't happen to me. And then also resignation, being like, hey, my flight instructor, he's the PIC, he's my instructor. He wants to bring his family. There's nothing I can do about it, but I can. So a couple other things. So maneuvering and flying close to the airplane's envelope produce a little bit of risk. We're 2 flights away from my check ride, so we're going to be doing power off 180, chandelles, lazy eights, all the maneuvers. And those are the majority of those are flown in a very slow configuration, really pushing the airplane to its envelope. So with extra weight, especially at aft weight, I'm going to be concerned about recovering from stalls and such. And then also, I'm just concerned that extra weight in the airplane is not how I'm going to take my exam, and that's going to affect my maneuvering performance and not have me quite as ready for my exam, because that's not what the airplane is going to feel like on the day of. So discussing threat and air management, how I'm going to manage some of these threats. So high density altitude, I need to use longer runways to cut down on the way to the airplane. So that's either going to be dropping passengers, the 2 parents, or losing some fuel. Plane loaded to the max weight. I really need to convince my CFI to leave his family, or we could drop unnecessary fuel. I really want to keep all the fuel though, especially if we're going to be flying in a thunderstorm-rich environment. Maneuvers conducted with the plane at max gross weight and high density altitude. If I do end up going at max gross weight, I'm going to want to do these maneuvers at a higher altitude. And then pressure from my CFI. How I'm going to handle that is just explain my concern and be a part of the crew. And then possibly, if he doesn't agree with me, use the thunderstorms as an excuse to cancel and just say I'm not comfortable flying in those conditions. But ultimately, I'm the paying customer, and I really need to convince my CFI that, if he wants to take his family up, that's great, but I don't think it's proper time to do it right before my check ride. And then thunderstorms in the vicinity of the training area. Just make sure that I'm staying at least 20 nautical miles from any thunderstorms. And then, really checking the weather and doing my segment, looking at any segments that are posted, and then talking to a weather briefer is going to be a good idea on this flight. So that's how I'm framing this pre-flight actions for this flight, and some of the things I'm going to be considering. I do think we would be able to complete this flight safely. The thing I'm more concerned about is the thunderstorms and then also the training value right before my check ride. So class, great talking with you. Excited to watch y'all's video and for the discourse to follow.